All right, what is up guys? Charles here, welcome back to another beautiful day, I guess night in Eugene, Oregon. I know what you're thinking. It's not Sunday. To be completely honest with you, my mom was in town visiting over the weekend and I didn't have the video quite finished up or where I wanted yet. So I decided to just do it again and give you guys 2 videos this week instead of 1. So this will be kind of like last week's video and then I'll be posting again this Sunday and then back to normal. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about a question I get all the time, and that question is, what did I major in at Stanford? I'd always meant to make a video on this, but I never had, so I wanted to make sure that I talk to you guys about it before too much time goes by and it's still fresh in my mind, because I think it was a pretty unique and interesting major, at least it was to me, you know, which I think is the goal. But for those of you who are interested in this, I hope you enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's just get into it. So my major was called Symbolic Systems. And it was a Stanford only major. So when I tell people symbolic systems, their first instinct is kind of like, oh, what is that? And it's kind of intentional design. It was a very open-ended major. It was interdisciplinary and focused on melding subjects together and also doing it in a way that worked for you. So the name is intentionally a little bit vague. It's referencing symbols in the way that we see and think about the world. And that might make a little more sense as we get into what the major actually is. It's kind of intentionally designed so you don't get pigeonholed into any one of the 4 disciplines. And so those 4 disciplines are psychology, computer science, philosophy, and linguistics. And they chose that 4 disciplines because symbolic systems is all about studying ways of thinking. And the way that you do that in the major is by focusing on some of the best computational machines we have available to us. So those are going to be like computers, which are obviously made for computation, and then also humans, and the ways that these 2 things interact with each other. Psychology gives you a more research-focused understanding of the human mind. Philosophy allows you to think more deeply, from some of the greatest thinkers of our time. Computer science allows you to understand what thinking really is down at its most minute level. And then linguistics is a little bit out there, but it's a very important component because the only way, like how I'm talking to you right now, that we're able to think and communicate and exchange ideas is through language. But the main goal of any language is to interact. So you get computer science to understand how machines think, psychology and philosophy to understand how humans think generally, and then linguistics to really dive into how these computational bodies interact with each other and exchange ideas. I wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of each component, what I learned, what I found valuable from it, starting with psychology. So psychology was really the starting point for me at Stanford. I thought that was the major I wanted to do. To be perfectly honest, I thought that it was a major that would work really well for me as an athlete because it was a little bit lighter on the course load. And I found that as I transitioned through my freshman year, that was really helpful for me, managing stress, managing workload. It was nice to have a major where you weren't drowning in units and workload. And then on top of that, it was a topic that I found really fascinating. So in that sense, it was sort of doubly useful for me to have something that I could get into at my own pace and that I also really wanted to get into. Every day at class was really fascinating. We learned about all these different research projects. Psychology also gives you a lot of understanding about how people interact with one another, about different ways that we think about things. And it was really helpful as well from a competitive perspective to get a lot of insights into my own mind and ways that I can kind of maybe hack the system or understand things better to approach competitions. Computer science I wanted to talk through next because it was really the catalyst behind that next step into symbolic systems that I took. When I was getting to the end of my freshman year, I saw a lot of my friends and teammates doing all these incredible things in computer science. I've always been someone that's really into tech, really likes gadgets and all things digital. And while I was very intimidated by the difficulty and course load that all the computer science classes had, I still saw these guys attacking all these computer science problems the way that, you kind of attack running, which is kind of just throwing yourself at something over and over and over and over again. And it's not like any individual moment is all that difficult, but it's the net time that really gets you. But eventually it felt like if you worked hard enough and for long enough, you would get there in the end. I gave the CS introductory class a try. It was called CS 106. I had so much fun in that class, despite how much time it took to get through. I was basically starting from scratch, but the Stanford teaching team was so excellent. I was onboarded almost immediately, learned how to code in Python. Then we moved on to C++, I believe. And then it really just opened up and you were able to take all these CS courses in statistics and probability. The final capstone CS class I took was designing a machine learning algorithm that sorted through insurance data. Learning how to build these systems yourself gave you a really core understanding to what thinking really is. Now, obviously humans and computers don't operate the exact same way, but the goal is to kind of get the insights into where the similarities are and try and bridge that gap to figure out what the future is gonna look like. So I found those classes to be infinitely rewarding, so interesting. They were so difficult. I am glad to have a lot more time freed up right now to focus on athletics, but coding is something I never want to let go of, and it was something that I really enjoyed. And from that point on, I was dead set on doing symbolic systems. So then I took a lot of philosophy and linguistics classes. The philosophy classes were absolutely excellent for getting a more emotive understanding of thought. Obviously, it's not gonna be as hard science or even as psychology, but you gotta spend a lot of time in deep thought and have a ton of interesting conversations with classmates, peers, teachers, and as you're reading through these long papers, almost a conversation with the people that wrote them themselves. It was certainly a different way of approaching the subject that kind of gave you that intangible sense of what it is to be human, what it is to consider, feel, and think about things is something that's completely invaluable to me, and I'll keep with me for the rest of my life. Finally, linguistics was the one that I was most hesitant to jump into. It was the one that I was most unsure about, and it felt a little bit separate from the others. There's so many different ways you can learn about language. You can go all the way down to the smallest element, which is like phonetics and things like that, where you're learning about the sounds of speech. And then you can expand way beyond that into topics that are a lot more broad, as in it's learning about the way that words are connected together. It's not, individual units of speech. It's more expansive and learning about vocabularies, conversations, even humor, because so much of humor comes from violations of our rules with how words are meant to work. And so as I sort of expanded out in my scope of linguistics, I found that I enjoyed it more and more. It felt more applicable, sort of the day-to-day stuff we were learning. And while the small things are incredibly invaluable and you can't leave them behind, I really found myself enjoying the classes where you learn about language on a broader scope, about the sort of rules that dictate us and all the similarities there are across languages all around the globe. So kind of in summary, one of my favorite things about symbolic systems was really the freedom it offered me to approach my academic track. Balancing sports in school can be really difficult, and the more rigidity you have built into your academic schedule, the more sacrifices you're gonna have to make for the sport. And I feel like by having a major like SimSys, there's so many options for how to approach the classes, when to take them. For each quarter, it felt like I was able to make the least amount of sacrifice to the sport while also getting the same education, just because I had the freedom to shuffle things around, take them at my own pace, and also enjoy just diving into 4 seemingly completely different disciplines and learning about something new every single day. I feel like this really helped me manage my stress. It also helped me compete. It helped me feel fresh every day that I was going to school. And it helped me really enjoy my time at Stanford to the absolute fullest and come away with everything that I think an education should be. I hope that summarized things well. I hope that it wasn't too confusing, just because I know, it's not as simple as a major usually is. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it informative. If there's any other things you guys want to hear, let me know down in the comments, and I'll be reading through those and responding to them as soon as I see them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on Sunday. All right. Till next time, I'll see you when I see you.